next player that we are going to talk about is going to be David Njoku. David Njoku on the Browns, a little bit of a murky situation, right? I mean, we're really not sure who's going to be the quarterback in this room. Deshaun Watson, we know, is probably not suiting up for the Browns this year, and there's a good chance he never suits up for them again. Now, they haven't brought in a quarterback. Is it going to be Kirk Cousins? I don't know. But David Njoku right now going 99th overall off the board. He was the 902 at the end of March 27th, and then March 30th, just 3 days later, he moved up 5 spots to the 907. So a decent jump. And you're talking about a 28-year-old tight end with David Njoku, who, quite honestly, is not that old for a tight end. Tight ends age fairly well in the NFL. I mean, that's one of the more, for lack of a better way to put it, graceful, positions when it comes to aging in the NFL. And David Njoku, for what it's worth, has done a decent job no matter what quarterback has been there in the last 2 seasons. Stefanski's just kind of found a way to unlock him over the last 2 years. Matt, what are your thoughts there with David Njoku going right now at the 907? He's actually dropped back 5 spots.
Yeah, fantastic value. I mean, especially if you're in any type of tight end premium league, that's incredible value. I mean, Njoku has been really, really solid. And, you mentioned the quarterback question marks. That's going to be a risk that's probably going to get baked into his price even more as we approach the NFL draft and even after, depending on what they do. If they draft Shador, am I interested in David Njoku? Absolutely. He's a safety blanket for a quarterback because that's what he's been so far for every single other quarterback in Cleveland. You mentioned he's only 28 years old, which is fine for a tight end. You can absolutely expect another 4 years from him, and he'll continue to produce. I mean, he averaged almost 14 points a game in PPR leagues, even more than that in tight end premium leagues. You're not going to necessarily find anyone in that range that's got the production that he's had. We mentioned he's 99th overall, I believe, on Dynasty Data Lab, which is pretty low in my opinion for where he probably should be. The names around him, would you rather have him or Kyle Pitts? Because Kyle Pitts is only 5 picks behind him. What has Kyle Pitts done to deserve to be anywhere close to David Njoku? Not necessarily much. Jonnu Smith is in there, certainly an interesting case there in Miami. But I think David Njoku is kind of being slept on a little bit. He's been really solid. And if he gets any sort of stable quarterback play, which I think Kirk Cousins can do, and I think Shador could do to an extent, I think that only helps him. The wide receiver core does not intimidate me. It's Cedric Tillman, a lower round draft pick. It's Jerry Jeudy, who was an all-pro or a Pro Bowl player this past season, but it wasn't necessarily a fantastic statistical year for him. He just kind of happened to be a guy available. I think that he's absolutely someone that should be drafted a little bit higher, and he's a value right now in dynasty startups.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, at 28 years old, I mean, you look at him, I mean, he pretty much has broken out the last few years, right? Tight end, we all know it's a slow developing position. I know as of lately, the last few years, a lot of guys have come in, young guys, and they've hit the ground running. And that's an anomaly. That's not really usually the case, right? You're pretty much learning 2 positions. You're learning how to play tackle, and you're learning how to play wide receiver as a tight end. Like that's real, and sometimes fullback. Right? Like, just what it is. David Njoku over the last 3 seasons, 8th in points per game, 7th and 4th in points per game. So when he's on the field, he's giving you top 10 numbers at the tight end position. And he's getting a lot of targets, 80, 123, and 97. He had 97 targets in just 11 games last year. He had 123 in 16 games in 2023, and then he had 80 in 2022 with 14 games played, which was like the first year of his quote unquote breakout. So I think this ADP probably rises soon once we get more clarity on the quarterback situation, right? I think there's a very solid chance that Kirk Cousins gets traded there. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised. I think that is a very strong possibility. I think that's a domino that maybe the Browns are kind of waiting to see what happens on draft day, and then that's the contingency plan. Because I mean, let's be real. Kenny Pickett's not going to be the starter a week 1 for this team, and if he is, I'll be extremely surprised. And you can pull this clip back up, and I'll gladly say I was wrong. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And to your point, I think this is baked in. I think right now, like this price is off of uncertainty. And when you look at the guys going around him, if you're a guy that's going to kick tight end down the, kick the can down the road, I don't see how, like, when you look at Dalton Kincaid, who's going two tight ends and a whole round ahead of him, I'm not super sold on Dalton Kincaid. Like, I'm not taking Dalton Kincaid with that
Absolutely
price when
not.
you can, yeah, when you can get other players around him. I think, Njoku's priced in next to Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Josh Downs, who I love, like some other guys that like we're not sure about. You kind of know what you're getting from Devontae Adams, but the age is there. But I think overall, I think it's a good spot for Njoku. I could see him probably settling in maybe around higher, but that's about it. Unless this team, if Cousins comes here, I could see him jumping up a round and a half. I really could. Like, we've seen when he gets a quarterback that can get him the ball, he has the ability, and he's been able to do it with trash cans out there half the time. So I like the value. I think tight end, we got burned a little bit last year, and Njoku's been one of the more consistent guys when he's been on the field the last few years. So I
Mhm.
like the value. I like the spot. You're not paying a ton to get him at this point. And if you take a guy like Njoku and you're like, 28, maybe you're a little worried. There are other guys you can take swings on that are younger, right? If you believe in Ben Sinnott, right? You take Ben Sinnott and maybe you hope that he has another step forward and starts to break out. Brenton Strange, if you're a big fan of him, he's going, you know, 4 or 5 rounds behind him, right? You can pair him up. And so I'm fine with Njoku at that price. I think it's really good value. So
Yeah,
that's it.
I
You got
completely
anything else?
agree. No, I just add, like you said, if he gets Kirk Cousins, as much as we make fun of Kirk Cousins, I think he would be absolutely stability for him, and you could argue maybe the best quarterback he's ever had. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess Baker, but it's a different Baker that we have now than was in Cleveland before. So it's just different, and I think that if he gets any stability, it's gonna matter, and it's only gonna help him because
Yeah.
that team's not necessarily bad.
No, I mean, it's not. I mean, they have some holes, but I think their offensive line's still solid. They could maybe use another wide receiver there. But
Right.
I mean, they
Sure.
have pieces. They have pieces. I think Watson's really just killing that whole situation with that cap
Oh yeah.
situation.